Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, the audience. Thank you for coming and to this lecture or this webinar. What I'm going to say here is actually my experience. You know, for several years, or almost 60 years actually, by reviewing, reading, studying the literature of geology of Indonesia, in that I finally was wrapped up in writing a book on this. And what this and during this time, the development, then I have my problems in the writing the stratigraphy with the stratigraphy of Indonesia. Let's see what happens. Then yes, I don't know. Okay. Well, actually, names in geosciences require specific names in describing features. And these are always problems, because the names that are proposed are the first investigator and followed by some second author, sometimes not followed by other authors. It is not only stratigraphic names that it's a problem, but confusing, but also tectonic features or units that are main tectonic features like basin, fault, thrust belt, etc., structural features. They all have names, and in general, there are no much problem in naming tectonic features. But stratigraphic names are a problem because they are quite different concept of terms. Stratigraphic features, especially map units of regional significance, create some problems. Let me wait with this. Different concept of stratigraphic units, especially as time proceeds. And to avoid confusion, rules or naming stratigraphy established by geologic organizations, such as in these countries is the IAGI, which codifies the codes of stratigraphy. Now, the stratigraphic codes that exist in North America, I think it was in 1933, then 47, revised again, and it's new one. The last time I had was 1983. Even the Indonesian code was also first time it was written in 1975, of which I'm responsible for that too, because I was at the time the president of IAGI, and then was revised in 1996. And then there's an international guideline in 1976. In 1972 was revised. And then there are many certificate codes of other countries. But notably, most of the certificate codes of the other countries are following pretty well the North American certificate code, except the Russian. The Russian, they all use time-based stratigraphy and not recognized little stratigraphy at all. So this is one thing. But how look about the stratigraphic classification? Well, there are actually two types of units. One is stratigraphic horizon units, which are actually zones or with top and bottoms. And in the beginning, they only use the word geochronology of the word by kind of names like era, period, etc. And then there is a need also for countries to have its stratigraphic units, sometimes called time of units, using local names, which is not directly comparable with the standard geochronology in Europe. But then, again, later on, especially in the US, then the lithostratigraphic units are used because lithostratigraphic are more practical. You don't need to go to collect fossils and was that sign ages of the lithostratigraphic unit, can directly apply local names. It was first used by the U.S. Geological Survey to the Western, the so-called I forgot the name. Anyway, later on, biostratigraphic units become standard worldwide, because they use fossils as criteria, not as ages, but as fossils as such. Based on that, and become the zones are considered worldwide, not local. So biostratigraphy today we know used in Indonesia, like the blow zones and the that are mostly numerical as numbers, use numbers sequence. Also later on, magnetic stratigraphic units. These are also time-based. Then we do have also static horizons. Yeah? I think no static goes to cover about this horizon, but they use informal names. But anyway, the International Geology Code does recognize the importance of stratigraphic horizons, such as unconformities, and then also lithologic horizons, biohorizons, and especially the seismic horizons. But then again, later development is becoming of sequence stratigraphy, yeah? Which is not recognized in any statistical code. In the American Statistical Code is not recognized. It is also not recognized in the International Guide for Statistical Codes, except as unit unconformity bounded sequences. But in the Indonesian Statistical Code, it has to be adopted as sequence stratigraphy. Now, the trend is that more and more is to avoid interpretative units, except the chronostratigraphic units. They try to avoid it. But the use of tangible, observable, measurable criteria, such as lithology, fossils, not as time indicators, but as fossils itself, but understood that they are time indicators. But these are tangible. Even the magnetostratigraphic units is based on measurable polarity criteria. It's to be can be measured in the laboratory. So that's the tendency that nowadays, I think mostly all countries use lithostratigraphic units, mostly in mapping, in geological maps, lithostratigraphic units, except probably in regional units, regional maps, or small scale maps. They use probably chronogeology. Anyway, there are some basic rules for naming stratigraphic name. I think stratigraphic name nomenclature should be valid for all rock types. It is sedimentary, igneous, metamorphic. They must be valid to name these units of rock types. And all rock occurrences, whether it is in the surface, outcrops, or in the subsurface, it has to be valid for this. And also in all tectonic units, whether it is innovation in the mountain ranges, volcanic belt, this nomenclature should be valid and probably mutually the same. Now, requirement established is also shown for all rock types, all occurrences in all tectonic units. Okay, then what happened in surface geologic mapping? The criteria stratigraphic unit are main basic was surface-based geologic mapping. Yeah, well, stratigraphy should be mapped on scale. Probably the smallest, the largest scale is 135,000. Stratigraphic unit should have lateral continuity. And in the beginning, stratigraphies are time rock units, series stages, the lateral extension to be time interval equivalent, depending on the fossil content for its time identification. But later on, the stratigraphics are introduced, causing lateral extension problems due to phase change, but applicable for igneous and metamorphics also. Present-day geologic maps are based on later stratigraphic units, except on small-scale geologic map using geochronology probably. These stratigraphic units are assigned ages or age ranges, which is based on spot sampling, but it's considered valid for the whole unit. So this is one thing, which is the practice that you find a rock sample, there has to be some faucet in it, and apply the age for this whole stratigraphic unit.
Ay, kalau di sini kan ada wifi tuh.
Now, then also we have some surface geologic practices that affect stratigraphic nomenclature. In the subsurface static units are exhibited in cross sections, mostly in surface geological and surface geology and surface geological maps. But in subsurface geology, it is exhibited mostly in as cross sections. Well, very rarely as subcrop geologic maps. Subsurface maps are interformers, such as isopath, watches map, stratigraphic unit must have a minimum thickness than the mappability. So what minimum thickness is there to consider a map? What's that, a stratigraphic unit? What the minimum? 10 meters, 100 meters, or what? It's not very clear. But they're based mostly on well data, cuttings data. Now, the thing here is that cuttings data and well data are systematic sampling. So biostratigraphic data or age determining of age based on systematic sampling, so more accurate than the surface units. And on well data, formation tops can be picked based on lithology mostly. But then again, in the subsurface, we use lots of seismic data, especially in the oil industry. And then there are reflection using reflection seismic horizons. Only distinct horizon reflection with lateral, and it's called seismic horizon. It's so well established that seismic reflector represents geologic time surfaces. Now, it is the customary to relate formation tops near tops, to relate to formation top, near tops, or interval between tops. So that was early. So because you look for oil in formation, but not in stratigraphic horizon. But later on, seismic horizons are independent of formation. They're called simple horizon, and usually indicated by color code instead by the name of the top of the formation. Then also we know that most seismic horizon intervals are recognized to have a stratal pattern called sequences. So actually sequence stratigraphy is based on the stratal pattern within two intervals of seismic horizons rather than based on lithology or anything. Seismic horizon unrelated to sequence stratigraphy of regional significance are also recognized, often called events. Yeah, there's many in the that appear in the literature about seismic horizons or simply called horizons, like something like in Central Sumatra Basin, the Patani, the intra-Patani horizon, etc. So the presence of horizons, especially in the subsurface, is quite usual. Now, the present status of this naming nomenclature that the GRDC, or the Indonesian Geological Survey, has completed a systematic program in, I'm sorry, it's not 2020, but in the year 2000, on a scale of 1 to 100,000 for Java and Madura, and 1 to 250,000 for the rest of the island. And beside astrologians of the sheet maps and then the explanatory notes, the stratigraphic names has been compiled in the Stratigraphic Collection of Indonesia, which is published in 2003. So there is lots of names there. Yeah? The petroleum industry has practically explored all the bases, general based on subsurface data, resulting into stratigraphic names expressed mostly in cross sections, and the stratigraphic data are published in either proceeding or special publications or IAGI proceedings. The mining industry also explored over Indonesia, but the results are mainly detailed. For regional stratigraphic names conform mostly to GRDC. A comprehensive summary and review of the geological stratigraphy given by Van Leeuwen in 1994. And in general, there's no much problem in the stratigraphy there because it's conformed to the GRDC. Now, GRDC Lexicon Stratigraphic of Indonesia, which is published in 2003, is about 709 pages long, and the number of entries I estimated to be more than 2,000 lithostratigraphic names of formation, groups, etc., and members. So there's quite a great number of lithostratigraphic names. These stratigraphic units include all types of rocks. The names do not always conform to the code, of course. Many stratigraphic units are not properly named. Some are just simply called the Jurassic limestone or something. And especially igneous rocks are not named at all. They're just simply called diorite or granite or something like that. But ages are assigned to this formation, or age ranges rather, based on fossils and radiometric dating from spot sampling. Several names have type localities. So this is, I think, this is, I think, the literature or the book you have to look at to review all the stratigraphic names that appear in Indonesia these days. It has to be remembered that in the past, after Van Bemmelen, the stratigraphic lexicon also appear, which is written by Mark, but the number of entries is much, much smaller. Yeah, less than. So there's a huge number of stratigraphic names in Indonesia today, not containing or not including the names that appear from subsurface or from the oil industry. Now, so the petroleum industry also have given exposure in blocks in surface exposure, but also in alluvial plains and offshore areas. The stratigraphies are obtained from the adjacent outcrop areas, or some solely based on well data, no surface equivalent well and step localities. Some of the names are coordinated with geodesic surface and geologic map, but often using also old literature names. So the static units are also assigned ages or age ranges, yeah, based on systematic clamping of by stratigraphy zones. So they are more accurate from the view of the age ranges. These are the tend to be correlated by seismic reflection. This is also to be noted that stratigraphic units are actually not time units. Yeah? They can fade, age, and shale out or phase change laterally, but seismic reflection tend to be continuous, yeah, to be laterally much extended, although probably what you call the reflection become less and less. On the other hand, seismically defined static bodies and horizon are often named. Yeah? So static names appear in various publications as part of the proceeding and summarized as columnar sections. Some static names are explicitly decided in the formal. But anyway, we have, yes, publication. The IPA special publication published a standard category column diagram for established hydrocarbon producing area only, yeah, which is the Atlas IPA Oil and Gas Report Atlases 1988, 1999, which are basically stratigraphic units, but no detailed description for each stratigraphic is available. You have to look for the original report for them. Then we have some problems here. Stratigraphy or similar feature, rock type, and age, but completely separate from each other. Like intrusives in central area in Kalimantan, there is a swarm of intrusive or something hintang intrusive, small blocks distributed with area, intruding in different tectonic units. Then also same drift deposits. You have these central deposits are actually deposited in separate areas or graben, but they have the names, same names in the same basin, in the same outlying basin. So the central deposits here, they are actually not connected to each other. They're separate, completely separate, just like the intrusives, the synthetic intrusives. They are distributed over the wide area, but not actually connected to each other. Then there's also state stratigraphic units in 2 or more basins of tectonic units. Misalkan, for instance, a South Santa Basin and a Northwest Java Basin. Both use the Talang-Akar Formation and Batu Raja Formation. They are completely 2 different basins. But then the Barito Basin, Pasir Basin, and Asam Basin in Southwest Kalimantan also have the same stratigraphic system, nomenclature system. Papua Central Range and West Papua Microcontinent, they have also the same stratigraphic nomenclature system, except for the youngest Pliocene rocks. So there are these are actually what's that uh, notes that and confusing. Yeah. Different category of same antiquity within the same basin. Yeah. In the Central Sumatra case, ex-Caldas areas and ex-Stanford areas have different nomenclature system. They are in the same basin with no nothing in between. In the Northeast Java Basin, Western areas and Eastern areas, Klang and Block have different nomenclature. In the Bogor Trough, which is part of the Northwest Java Basin, then there is what is called the Pamali case, which is which I will later see tell you in the following diagram. And then there's also the Marau series case in Bogota. Now here they say Central Kalimantan, these are intrusives. These intrusives, they are all over the place in the Sangao zone, eastern in the was it Kutai Basin, in the Swanak Mountains, the central, this was that this Swanak Mountain. So these are spread all over the place, and each of one is called the Sintang intrusive. Just very small plugs, of course. So can you name these small separate things with separate names, or do you have? Can you name it each with a different name? Now, then there's the case of the central opposite. The case of Central Sumatra. In Central Sumatra Basin, use mostly stratigraphic nomenclature that was developed by Caltex in the 50s. But then, at the same time, the basin is shared with Stanford, that area, Southeast Central Sumatra, which used a completely separate name, with nothing in between to separate them, no geologic feature to separate them. These are completely within the same basin, and formation is actually the same, but with different names. So that is what is curious, of course. Okay. Here in the GRDC sheets also, in the Central Sumatra Basin, yeah, which is mapped in from 1982 to 1994. Here the sheets in the north use the Caltech nomenclature, subsurface nomenclature. Here, use the setback nomenclature. Yeah. And also a mix of old pre-war nomenclature as well as the setback nomenclature. Here, the finance sheet, they'll use different nomenclature. So they're still in the same basin, and so they have different names for the same unit. Now, this is the Bogota in Java. This part of the Northwest Java Basin. This is a very long, folded belt, which is now covered by volcanoes, actually, but it's outcropping between the volcanoes. So we have also different stratigraphic units because it's mapped not at the same time, but different authors. So we got numerous names here, but actually, like this. So the different name within the basin. These are the intrusives. So we have different names, but I think these names are different because of phases changes. Different phases would consider laterally become another formation. So this is quite valid. Well, that you can have different stratigraphic lithologic units laterally, yeah, if it is because of phase changes. But in the case of Central Sumatra, it has nothing between. There's no phase changes. So
Sorry,
there's a
Professor Kusuma.
yep.
3 minutes left for presenting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
There's a case where in the beginning, there's a Pomali formation, which is in Dogon Trough. But later it's also Pomali lithology, which is the age is Oligocene, Oligocene Miocene. So actually, the time locality is in Kalipamali. It is actually it turns out to be Pliocene in age, of late Miocene in age. And so it was revised that the formation is range in age from Oligocene to late Miocene. But actually, the so-called Pomali formation, which is mapped with Oligocene age, is quite different unit, but similar formation has a long range age. Yeah. Actually, it consists of two formations. So the Oligocene, the Pomali of the Oligocene age turned out later to be not Pomali at all, because it's separated by other layers, and is considered to be now as the Chinambo formation. So this is also the Barito Basin and the South Basin. These two basins are very separate, but they have the same stratigraphic nomenclature. Here also, it's very separate between the bird head area, which I think it is I call the West Papua the West Papua Falkland Basin, or not Falkland, and the Central Range, which is quite different because it's separated by deep marine shales rather than contiguous, but still have the same names. Now, case of problem, names of the going fortune lateral, of course, match wholly upon the same lithology criteria, disregarding the historic duration boundaries. Names of the going different also of the sheet independently. All industry operate a different block within the same basin, often name their formation independently, disregarding boundaries. Device number case valid for whole rock, disregarding the boundaries. In a research paper, also disregard certain codes. Then also the development of new stratigraphic concept would also affect cause problems in naming, such like the basal sand concept of tertiary basin versus the Sindrift graben deposits. Yeah? These are new concept that changes the names. So I have some recommendation for the graphic units. The strategic horizon or regional segment should have formal names, such as regional angular unconformity, biohorizon, lithostatic horizon, including seismic horizon, except sequence boundary. Sequence boundary should have not formal, but use more worldwide the names. Nomenclature requirement for tectonic units, particularly sediment basins, should be considered in the new certificate, the revised certificate code. No requirement for formal certificate names, a detailed description of type sections to be simplified to accommodate for igneous and metamorphic rocks. Simply by mentioning its type locality is sufficient. But still, the presence of details and description of type sections as required in the present SSI is still desirable. However, its publication can be deferred in IAGI SSI class publication on type section as reference for future theory studies, research, and exploration. Then IAGI should have a standing committee to monitor and review certificate of name and resolve the problems associated. Review the existing certificate names and declare your names of formal or informal. Yeah, we can begin with the certificate collection of Indonesia. As a matter of fact, I have also my own version of stratigraphic lexicon, actually a database on Excel of all the names of the GRDC maps units of Indonesia. It's probably the same as this printed book. An annual review of publication on the Georgia of Indonesia on appearance of new certificate names. The committee should publish its finding in annual report. IAGI should have a program for establishing type sections of every certificate name by sponsoring student final year or even master thesis to do section mention and lateral analysis to establish type sections. Now, I have also a recommendation for revision. I think sequence stratigraphy as adopted by the second SSI should be revised. I think the SB, a sequence one, should be considered as stratigraphic horizon, should name after its radiometric ages, something like SB 20, SB 4.5, which is globally valid and is tied to global sea level changes. Sequence names should be given formal name, but use the dominating stratigraphic name in the sequence as name. For instance, instead of getting new names, just use the formation names, but use it as instead of Gayong or just sequence, Gayong sequence, but to just sequence, etc. Instead of using a new graphic name, it will become more confusing. Volcanic stratigraphic adopt SS1 should be revised. It's valid only for quaternary deposits. As a nomenclature is generic based on morphology and in its present-day processes. Name of pre-quaternary volcanic should be then subject to interpretation of its morphology. So it should be only valid for quaternary deposit or even Holocene deposit. And the standard, the SSI code is not valid for quaternary Holocene deposit. These deposits are best named of its morphological feature, ongoing processes rather than by its lithology, like the Mahakam Delta deposit, Budakan Reef, the Solo Terrace, or even it's not named at all. Yeah, so Tatalufio or Fence, etc. So I think I must have something forgotten, but that is all I could have to